Okay, great. So what we've done now is we have learned how you can assign CSS rules using the HTML ID and HTML class attributes. But when you're working with large web pages with multiple HTML elements and classes, it is likely that the same element may be assigned conflicting CSS rules. So what would the browser do in such a case? Well, the following rules govern which rule takes precedence over the other. Firstly, a rule which you assign using the inline style attribute overrides rules assigned using the class attribute, right? So for example, let's take this particular case where we have on this div which has the class boring, right? So let's look at the CSS file. So you can see that we have assigned a color 666666, right, in the class boring. So what we'll do here is that we shall override this using a color of our own. So let's say we want to assign the black color, right? So let's save this, okay, and then let's hit preview. So there you go. So what we've done is we've overridden the color attribute in the class boring by specifying a color attribute using the inline style attribute. The second rule is that if multiple classes are assigned to an element, then the rule defined last in the CSS file will take precedence. So now let's take this example where we have this div element which is assigned to classes boring and red text, right? Let's look at the CSS file. So you see that in boring we assign a color hash 666666, whereas in red text the color assigned is red, right? So what happens here? Since red text is defined after boring, well, so FF0000 will take precedence, right? This is something that is not recommended. You should not rely on where your class is defined in the CSS, right? You should always have a method which is more foolproof. So as I said in the last case, if you want to override a class attribute, then you use the inline style attribute. However, there is also another way where you can override conflicting attributes and specify a particular attribute with the highest priority, and that is done using the bang important tag, right? So let's see. So in this case, let me assign a bang important tag here. So let's hit preview. So there you go. So what we've done is whatever is assigned using the bang important at attribute or tag will take precedence over everything else, right? So once again, experiment with this particular lab. Try and be as comfortable as possible with assigning CSS rules using ID, class, the inline style attribute, as well as look at what happens if there is a conflict.